Hello and welcome to ULTI.TV's first look into the crystal ball of 2025. I'm Steph Pazzo, and I'll be your host for this unique peek into 2025, brought to you by our esteemed panel of ULTI.TV commentators, Amelia Durbin, Benji Reese, and Hannah Pendlebury. We're going to get straight into the show today and break down our takes on who's going to finish on top in Europe in 2025. We'll reference how teams did last year, 2024, at EUCS, and we'll go over the Ulti World article by Sean Colfer, the Player of the Year awards that you've all seen, no doubt, to see where everybody ended up last year, and of course, what we think and how we think they're going to end up next year. Let's start with a quick hello, everybody. Derbs, we'll start over there. How you doing?
Not too bad, thank you.
Nice.
Living the dream.
Where are you coming in from today? Where are you?
Bristol today, in the living room of my new house.
Okay. Derbsy.
Only a rental. Come on, don't get too excited.
Derbsy and the new digs. Of course, Derbs, a participant, a player at EUCS last year. The rest of us straight up Mike punters here. And we'll move through the punters. Benji Reese and potentially some cats. Benj, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm not bad. In full on winter mode at the moment. It's been pretty cold here in the valleys, as it sometimes tends to be. But otherwise, vibing, just waiting to come out for the springtime and get back into Frisbee season. Really,
aren't we all? And of course, Hannah Pendlebury. Hannah, how you doing up in that top right corner?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Coming to you from a actually quite warm Portsmouth. We've experienced some very cold weather, hence Benji's mountain man look in the UK. But we're in our little microclimate here because we've got a hill and a sea, so balmy 8 degrees today. Gotta love it.
Balmy 8 degrees. I'm going to go ruin your city name and call it the Mouth now, even though it's the Mouth. But the Portsmouth, Benji loves it. I see the head shake out of all of you Brits. But welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here. And let's get straight into this sucker. So we've got it all worked out. Of course we do. We know exactly how the balls are going to fall in 2025. Let's start in the women's division. Last year, 2024, it was GRUT who, I guess, surprised everybody, took the top seed. Moon Cup, maybe an even bigger surprise. We'll discuss which one was the bigger surprise, to see GRUT on top or Moon Cup make it in the final. Jinx, maybe everybody's favorite, were the bronze medalists. As far as teams go, let's start in the same order here. Derbs, what do you think about 2025? Are these teams going to fall in the same order? Any notable differences that you see in your crystal ball?
So when I typed out the notes that I've got in front of me, I was thinking, it's obviously going to change. And then I looked at the list of where people finished last year, and my immediate thought was, I don't think anything is going to change. I think GRUT have already released their roster. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that it's public who they've got on their team now, and they've kind of picked up some very, very talented players. Christina Sutzer is obviously the big name that's moved from East Block to GRUT, and I think that's only going to make them better. Moon Cup, I hear on the grapevine or the crystal ball, have also got some great pickups, and the rumours about Jinx are also kind of starting to come in. So I think the three of them are going to continue being stalwarts, but worth acknowledging that Yaka had a bit of an oopsie at Euros, and Cusp, not far behind. But
formerly known as Cusp.
Oh, so sorry, yeah, Cusp.
BFD nowadays.
BFD. Shout. The Italians from Bologna. It'd be interesting to see where they come, but I'm putting my money on GRUT doing it again. I think they've got a real good attitude towards Frisbee. They're a really great bunch of people who really try hard, and it's paid off already, and I think that's going to continue.
Yeah, that roster looks good. Christina Slusta, Benji. I know Slusta is one of your favorite players. How do you? Talk about the same order here, or what you think of those top four, and I guess start with the fit of Slusta on GRUT, perhaps.
Rich get richer to start with. That is it's a pretty handy extra set of hands to get on the team. It's interesting because GRUT tend to play quite a big, expansive style, and that's not necessarily Clijsters' game. She's much more a slice and dicer who'll run through you, but I think it's good that you're not just adding players in that same archetype. I think it's good that it gives you a little bit of variety. Maybe if your offensive game plan's not working for whatever reason, all of a sudden you can say, okay, we can try and play things a different way. And, great players will adapt. They'll make it work, even if it's not necessarily their sort of MO and how they would normally operate. Good players find ways to get it done. And also, actually there's a chance to maybe add something different to her game, learning under a different system, different coaches, playing with different teammates. That could be a big boon. The big thing for me, I think, for a lot of, and this is not just exclusive to the women's division, but across all three divisions, is obviously we've got the World Games coming up in the summer in Chengdu in China, and I think that will almost certainly affect a lot of the top players on the continent in terms of maybe drawing some of their focus, what they choose to do before and afterwards, whether that means they can't be at certain tournaments because they've got training weekends or scrimmages or whatever. Let's be honest, if you're playing World Games, that takes priority. And even if you're not necessarily in the 14, if you're one of the people who's, maybe potentially a reserve or you're in a training squad or whatever, then that requires the full buy-in, and that does take you out of things. Moon Cup had a bit of a Cinderella run really last year, didn't they? Beating Yaka on Universe in the pool, and then, coming all the way to the final with that Universe point win over Jinx in the semis. But a lot of Moon Cup's, some of Moon Cup's strength certainly comes from some of the international talent. So thinking about the Bordeaux sisters, for example, I'd be very surprised if they're not playing France World Games. I know last I heard they made the initial cut down, so I fully expect to see them on the roster, to be honest. Jinx as well, some of their stars will be probably playing for Germany in the summer. So I think, if anything, whereas with GRUT, you're looking at who their top players are, who their key players are, and there's no World Games involvement there. So I think that almost certainly sets the stage really well for GRUT at the top of the division. The fact that you're not going to be seeing, say, Italy at the World Games, maybe that pushes Shout's stock a little bit higher than perhaps it was.
Very interesting take. I think I agree with you on almost every point there. Hannah, let's get your weigh in on the top of this women's division, and then we can get into a bit of further debate about it. But let's hear what you got here for us.
Well, I'm going to go briefly a little jump back in time and say your comment about it being a surprise to see Moon Cup and GRUT at the top of the standings. I'm not sure, especially after we saw the GRUT performance at Tom's and how already the mechanism was starting to flip together. I don't think I was surprised one iota to really see them just steal away with the division. I mean, that final performance especially was very good. The GRUT roster, Sarah Yekland, who, unlike Clijsters, will be adding another to the hand cannon brigade that they already have. So I think that Yekland coming across to them, of course, has previously been with Jinx Midnight. Jinx won't be having their trials, I think, until the end of March. So they've decided to make those cuts a little bit later in the season, which I think makes sense for them as a program in terms of the way they're dealing with perhaps some community, and I'm going to call it friction, but that's not in a pejorative sense, but the differing wants and needs of the Berlin scene. In terms of, we did see that division and the formation of Jinx Midnight specifically to cater for those that wanted to really push the elite and bring international talent into the fold. So certainly with, as the new personnel, like Benji said, the rich are getting richer, and I'm really excited to see it. Certainly if they can keep the machine going, keep the momentum, the next World Clubs performance, that GRUT team could look really very slick. They've got a very big roster that they've announced, and a lot of people that are actually unknowns and surprising as well. So it's not like they're not spreading the love and sharing things around. So that's cool to see. And I think, they're going to do really well. Moon Cup, of course, have some coaching prowess, and I think we'll be having. I'm trying to think exactly who it is. I'm not going to misname them intentionally, but they are receiving potentially back a player after her giving birth. So they'll have extra talent coming in with really a lot of wisdom. I think Moon Cup really rode the wave at EUCS. They really did just find that kind of self-belief like a young team does in those first formative seasons. So that was really exciting to see from them last year. I think with both Yaka and Shout, the interesting thing that I think with their rosters is that they have that, they're in that phase where they have a lot of mature talent that might be thinking about sort of like the last couple of seasons that they're going to play at that point. I mean, obviously you've got the likes of Irene Scazzieri, who just obviously went and won a national championship in the States. I don't think she's going to be retiring anytime soon. But it does feel a little bit like that youth talent that we see at the under-20s level is still really finding its form at the club section. I mean, Antoine Lacrosse-Lefebvre, obviously absolutely incredible, and we'll talk about her a little bit later on in today's show. But it's really interesting to see kind of that oopsie at EUCS. I think it just was that thing of, whereas Moon Cup had all that vibe and that energy to steal games away like that, and certainly having gone to watch the last moments of the semi-final that they played against Jinx. But I think with the Italians and the French, there'll certainly be, as Benji mentioned, that extra set of reps for the French stars that will be on Moon Cup. And perhaps some of them that will kind of, be in that kind of, I guess, an entire set of clubs and individuals in France helping those World Games at, top 14 prepare for the tournament as well. It's sort of, rising tides lifting all boats, as you say. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. I think East Block, with the loss of their talisman, it will be really interesting to see how they bounce back in terms of, they're not a one-player team. I know there were various chats on different groups about that move for Cluster and what that would mean for East Block and whether that should be allowed. I think it's wicked. Excited to see what the outfall is. But I think there's lots of talent on East Block. I mean, a fifth position finish at UCF last year is nothing to be sniffed at. I'm sure they'll be sad not to have her. Who wouldn't? I mean, I think if we had an all draft of European female matching players, I think it would be a tight finish, and probably she might get drafted first, especially, of course, if Benji is involved in the number one pick. A long-time fan, of course. But yeah, I think it's definitely really interesting to see also how the difference will impact of the timing of the various bits of season. We have quite a compressed early EUCS series, which we might talk about in a bit. But obviously Windmill's now been pushed well back. And it's really just, a case of us keeping our eyes open, I guess. But I think we might get some movements around the top 4 or 5, but I don't see necessarily too many teams that are going to rise and challenge those top spots.
Love to hear it. Great takes. I think my way in is quite similar. Now, of course, I think just one note, Sarah was there last year. She only played EUCF finals with GRUT, and Sarah Eklund was there and got the title. So she'll be back. Slusta, now, she is, straight up at CFC, of course, on the ULTI.TV team. But she said she's having a selfish year this year. She's doing it for her. She's loved leading East Block. She wants to learn. She wants a chance to win a championship. She wants all those things. Is she the perfect fit on GRUT, which a couple of you have touched on? Maybe not, but maybe that's the best thing for her to develop as a player, to not always be stuck in that same role, the same system, center of attention in a motion-based offense. Now she gets to, work around Flor Coulart and the wealth of talent they've got on that GRUT O-line and play and see if she can kind of play a different game. I think they are definitely going to be everybody's favorites. I want to hear, Derbs, you said something about potential recruits on Moon Cup. Now, I know I've had my fingers in the cookie jar, whatever you want to say, getting some information. But I know one big move from Moon Cup to Jinx is Ava Bourneau is moving to Berlin, and she will be moving to Jinx, and that is a major shift of power. That, to me, it depends how those lines get drawn up over in Berlin, but that putting Ava Bourneau and Anna Garner playing together, goodness gracious, Lev Kovalchuk, I mean, the potential combinations and just adding that to a team that maybe underperformed last year. Jinx, maybe blame it on Ostend, if you will, but they didn't get the job done. They were my favorites going in. I think lots of people's favorites, and I said a surprise to see GRUT at the top. Like you said, Hannah, they were progressively getting better. I think it was a surprise for me to see them just absolutely dominate. I was surprised to see that. Maybe not to see them winning and being at the top. So the other thing is shout. Okay, BFD dominant in this division for years. They always have 4 pickups that they allow. Last year they did not. Last year they had Tremonte, who played with them the year prior as not one of their pickups, but Sinead Dunn and Ava Muller, which are great players, excellent players. The year prior, you got to think they had Kmetsova, the offensive player of the year, Shaw, and Kublitska. So I am looking to see Shout re-bolster their external players, go out, go shopping, get those top-end recruits, and then use that Italian Bolognese army that they use so well. They've got growing players. Elena Bengi, one of my favorite to watch. Elena Benji Reese, as otherwise known. But I look to see BFD bouncing back. I can't see Yaka having another bad season. They've got too many young players. I think they've got some old leadership that are maybe hanging onto the reins a little too tight. We'll see about that. And I think East Block's in big trouble without Slusta. I think they're going to be the team that drops the most. Let's go straight into, how about we do maybe now this is, I'm working on the spot here. A team you think might drop the most, if you agree with me, on East Block. A team you think might jump the most, and then your 1, 2, 3 for next year. Unless there's anything else you want to weigh in on the division, anything else noteworthy that didn't leave the lips?
I think the only thing I think left on my notes is probably the concept of for these teams, these nations that have got some of the younger players, like the likes of Yaka, like the BFD, the Crews. If under 24s is going to have any ramifications in the same way of the World Games effect, for perhaps getting those athletes even more exposure to kind of, that maturing process. That's the only thing. I think
a lot of it is team culture too, where some teams will say, hey, go spend your season, put the focus on World Games. We'll keep you on the roster, play one national championship, get your eligibility. We'll see you at EUCF. And there's some other teams that'll be like, no, these are our requirements. You need to be at all of these training camps. You need to be at all these tournaments. If you can't make it, I know your World Games, but sorry, you're not on the team, which I think is crazy that some teams would do that. But I know that some teams will indeed do that. So, yeah, all these things to take into account. Anybody want to start with? Let's keep working around the circle. Derbs with her hand up. I'm ready.
So, the team I think that will go down the most, if we're doing percentages, I think the East Block will fall, mainly because I think they're going to lose a lot of their confidence. Christina is someone that I think gives people on the team a lot of confidence as well, and they play up to her standard. I worry that when she goes, a lot of people are suddenly going to have to be asked to do things that they're not necessarily ready to do, and then put that on a competitive stage immediately, going straight into the EUCF season. I think they might struggle. I don't think they're necessarily going to go all the way down the bottom, but I don't think they're going to be in that kind of top 6 or 7 or above. I did put in my notes that I don't necessarily think we'll see them in the top 8 at Euros if they qualify, so I'm going to call that now.
Okay.
And then I'm going to be honest here. The rise, it has to be Bristol because we came last.
I knew it was coming.
But what I will say is Bristol this year have had the most people we've ever had sign up to trials. We've got 93 people signed up, which is a huge, huge thing for Bristol. And if we pick the players that we want and they all pick us, we're going to have a 10 times stronger roster than we had last year. At Euros, we were missing 4 of our best players, and they're all in that season, plus 5 or 6 others that will bolster it. So we're very excited. So it's going to be us.
You could have 500 people trial, but if they're not any good, it doesn't really matter.
Oh, Benji Reese.
Well, I promise you, they're all very good.
It's a really good sign for Bristol, kind of just growth as a team.
Yes,
to have so many people who want to be a part of it.
But we're always fighting London's legitimacy, which is London's the pull. If people want to come to the UK to play Frisbee, they go to London. And so being able to create somewhere for female matching players in the Southwest, for us, it's a massive victory just for the growth of the sport as well. Because last year we had about 54 people sign up. And so to almost double it this year is remarkable, really.
Everything goes through Bristol this year.
Exactly. And then my top three, I am going to say that based on the news that Ava Borneau is playing Jinx, I'm going to switch it round. And I'm going to say that I think GRUT will win. I think Jinx will come silver. And then I think bronze will be Shout.
There's the picks. You heard it here first from Derbs. Let's move it up a square to Benji and Cats.
I'm not sure the Cats have too much of an opinion on this one, to be honest. In terms of a faller, Eastbox probably the obvious one. I'd also maybe potentially look at someone like Fabulous, I think. They played the conditions really well in Ostender, but it's going to be a lot more favourable out in Wrocław. So, or at least should be.
Don't jinx us now.
Especially, if you have any games on the artificial turf, it's a bit faster and doesn't necessarily suit Fabulous's game. So, I fully still expect them to qualify for Euros, but I wouldn't expect necessarily they might be a top 8 team necessarily, unless, but we know they can get hot at the right time. In terms of a team going up, Yaka feels like an obvious one. I'm going to swerve that, though. I actually think a team who actually didn't end up going to EUCF, but did qualify, I think, assuming that Smog decide that they actually want to go to EUCF this year, I think that there's a lot of talent in the north of the UK, and I think they, we missed a trick a little bit not seeing them at Euros.
I think that's a fair point.
It's a big question for you, though, Benji. Do we know if Smog have announced if they're focusing on open and women's, or if they're going back to focusing on mixed yet? Have we had that?
They're staying single gender this season. I think that's the plan for the WUC season as well. So it has to be because they're qualifying this year. But yeah, they're staying as Smog open and Smog women.
Very nice. And Benj, what's the podium look like in your eyes?
Annoyingly, I agree with Derbs. I've got GRUT 1, Jinx 2. I just think their Jinx Midnight will just be maybe a little bit short of legs and fatigue based on the World Games cycle, and Shout in third.
Mine could be similar. We'll see when we get there, but the top end, it's top heavy for a reason. Those rosters are looking very good. Hannah, let's move it over to you. Big gains and big drops first.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing you folks already kind of go through some of them. It's always fascinating for me, the kind of rosters that Fab bring together. So Fabulous, one of the things that they struggled with a little bit in terms of their summer tour performance, that we got to kind of see those remote in the Ternava games. It was just, a case of legs, but you kind of start to think about the level of experience and reps that some of their players are getting. So I'm not sure necessarily that they'll fall quite that far, but it's about, it is such an interesting part of all of these divisions, is that there are some nations just simply aren't able to bring the same number of athletes consistently to all of these events across the season. Obviously, part of the EUCS change was to try and make more local tournaments for folks that are, in less loved parts of the European scene. Certainly, Troubles were thinking about not attending in terms of their EUCF performance last time. I think I'm going to pick on them as potentially the furthest fallers. They do really, really heavily rely upon some of their really big throwers. Grażyna Klibicka obviously is the easiest one to pick on, but Bandula Dida as well, those kind of athletes. And I think especially now that there is a bit more tape and some of these teams are in the middle pack, I think starting to get access to a bit more coaching, which is huge, by the way. I think they will start to come up with sharper sets to really shut down, get those matchup rights, which is obviously a key part of shutting those lockdowns. So I'm going to pick on Troubles as my team to fall the furthest. And then I'm torn because 3SB obviously came top of the 9-12 bracket with some very big scoreline gaps. Catch up looked really good early last season, but then sort of had a couple of wobbles. But I'm going to pick on Jet Set Love to come up the ranks. I think there's a lot of good vibes that have been coming out of Leuven in recent seasons, and I reckon they could creep up the standings. But again, it's one of those things of just we're throwing out random stuff into the ether and see what comes back to us at the end of the year. My podium, it's really difficult to kind of pick. I think the Germans really did benefit from the World Games cycle last time. I think especially their female matching talent, those connections really did come together fantastically well. I'm not sure we're necessarily going to see too much movement in terms of the female matching athletes that make World Games. A lot of those athletes do reside on Jinx. So I'm going to be contrarian amongst the pack. I'm going to say that Jinx will sneak a gold away from GRUT, just for funsies. Whether it's a sensible choice, we'll find out at the end of the season. So I'm going to go Jinx 1, GRUT 2, and a Moon Cup 3.
Like to hear it, Hanny, stepping out on a limb there. But are you really? Jinx, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it's not.
Yeah,
not to poo-poo you,
choice. But Jinx put out a call for new coach this year, and I had a couple drinks one night, and I put in an application, and they did not pick me. My application was maybe not the most polished the way I wrote it. I would do it if
curious.
I had this, and this, and I didn't have to show up to this, and this. So I got my rejection letter, but I am curious to see who they do have.
Do you not know who they picked?
I do not. I mean, I know Ian French was there last year, Better Everyday Coaching. Check him out. He is the German World Games coach this year, but they have not. I don't believe it's been publicly announced who their new coach is. Do you have any insight on that, Bench?
It's me. No, it's not me. I have no idea.
Son of a bitch, you took my job. So anyhow, drops. Yeah, I think East Block is. I said it off the top. I'm gonna stick with that. Not sure Valeria will be coaching there anymore. Certainly, the loss of Felusta is gonna be tough. They are a good team. They are not just her, but
correct.
Goodness, she is the heartbeat that kind of keeps them ticking. I'm going to go and say woof after Torichas played really well on the beach.
Oh, yes.
They're a young club. I like what's happening in Ghent. Those girls are all, and I say like they are between 17 and 20, 85% of that roster.
Where are they from, Steph?
They are not
I just want you to pronounce it properly.
Ghent.
Yeah.
Better? Ghent.
Yeah.
Gentle. They are from what I would call Ghent normally without altering my throat enunciations, my gutturals. Anyhow, I agree with Hannah. I think this is Jinx's year as well. I think last year, the letdown, I'm not so sure either that the World Games hangover can't be a World Games momentum boost. I think like if things click, like coming off a campaign together, there's surely going to be 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 Jinx players that are on that World Games roster. And maybe like that added chemistry may well help, but I mean, it is tough to vote against GRUT. Is it an arms race kind of? Is European Ultimate turning into arms race? Maybe not in the mixed division, but if you look at the Open and the women's, it is really like, okay, maybe we'll talk about Open. Clapham stays strong. You must live in London, but there are very few teams that are not adding strong pieces right now, and it looks like it would be very hard to topple. Anyways, Jinx will beat GRUT. Cusp shout, BFD shout will be back on the podium. And will fight tooth and nail. I almost wanted to pick them to make it into the final, but I just can't see anyone toppling those other two.
I have heard Berlin's going to be good this year.
Well, great way to finish on that. First time we've ever heard that, Benji. But that will wrap up our team's predictions. We're not done yet. We're going to keep rolling through. We're going to talk now about the awards given out in the women's division last year, starting at the top. Floor Coulart's the season of her life. I mean, she's been awesome for so long, but she's been doing it in the mixed division, maybe playing not the most dominant role on the field while doing that. Comes in this year and wowed the hell out of everybody. What a season. She went over to the U.S., played there too. Ava Borneau, runner-up. She's moving to Jinx. I think most of us were all of us were part of the conversation that helped to award these players their well-deserved awards. Will they repeat? Will it be different? Anyone else you see vying for these spots? Shall we just maintain our order? Anybody want to take Derbs out of first in the rank? Happy to keep rolling. Derbs, what do you like? What do you think?
I can't see it changing necessarily, but I think that specifically in the women's division, the players that stand out, it's really dependent on how their teams build around them. Like player-wise, there's probably like 5 or 6 names that you could throw out that are very, very talented offensively. Like Charles, I didn't see Charles at Euros. I don't know if they played, but on that German women's side, very dominant and was really making a name for themselves. And I don't know whether they were injured or something, but they've got a massive bid for it. One thing I will say, which is going to make me sound really boring, is that it would be great to start seeing players that are like outside of the top teams be recognized for their skills, because it feels like at the moment, if you don't win or you don't come in the top 4, there's almost not a chance of you getting a look in. I think the one that did kind of break the barrier was the breakout player of the year, which is it Lacoste La Femme getting the breakout player, and totally deservingly. But it often feels like if you play for a team that isn't one of the teams, the household names, you will never be recognized.
Yeah, certainly those top 2 for player of the year. It's definitely part of the conversation how well the team did, as well as player performance. So you like it? You like a repeat? You think both those two?
I think it could be. It could be.
Ava's gonna find her feet in her new home and be able to shine in the same way.
Yeah, I can see it happening.
All right. It's certainly not outlandish to say. Benji?
It's interesting because you're right that so often we tie in how well a player plays with how well the team does overall, and sometimes is being the best player on the best team. Like, you could be someone who, your team finishes 6th or something, but without you, they'd have finished 14th or whatever. But it's tough to maybe quantify that in the same way because it doesn't come with the actual hardware. I mean, I think when it's really tough to prognosticate this far out, right? But you're looking at, even if it's not just like the 2 in the player of the year conversation, you're looking at the offensive and defensive players of the year as well, and you're thinking, yeah, I'd be pretty surprised if they're not there or thereabouts come the end of the season. Breakout's always the one that really fascinates me because so often, sometimes you can be like, yeah, next year you can just tell they're going to explode onto things. And other years you've got no idea and it completely catches you off guard. Like thinking back to a few years ago when Martina Kometsova kind of sprung onto people's radars out of nowhere playing for Leftovers and just really caught a lot of people off guard. And so it's like, that is the one that I find really tough to predict because by the very nature of the thing is, we don't know because they've not broken out yet. Noah, you can cut this bit for bias if you want. I hope Maya Kozak finds her way onto a good team because she was such an engine at CFC and just made continual good decisions and continually got free. And I think a team would be missing a trick to not have her as a downfield cutter.
I think she had mentioned she was going to try out for Jinx, or postulating to get invited for a tryout. So we'll have to dig deeper and find out how that went. But nice call there, Maya Kozak, potentially a breakout player at the top.
I fully accept that as a nepotism pick. By the way,
yeah.
I'm not pretending it's not, but it's breakout player. So who the heck knows?
At the top, players of the year, Poties.
You know what? I think that I'm going to say that maybe not Ava Borno, because going into a different system where she's maybe not going to be relied upon to make as many plays. Jinx can be quite a systematic, smooth team, and I don't think that necessarily puts you so high in the player of the year conversation, because so often it can be like the whole thing works synergistically rather than one player really bearing the blunt of the loads, as it felt like she did sometimes for Moon Cup. So it wouldn't surprise me for it to be Galarts. Also, I think with another year of Ultimate under her belt, and her athletic profile is ridiculous, I could very much see Aurora Leshnik breaking out just from Defensive Player of the Year into the full-on Player of the Year conversation.
Yeah, goodness gracious. Again, CFC talk. The athleticism in Aurora Leshnik in everything, catching, laying out for Ds, laying out for catches, her hucks, but even her give and go game, her breaks, she does have it all, Benji. I like that pick.
Everything except trying to push me over. I'm made of Cerner stuff. I've got a very solid base. You're not getting past me that easy.
Hanny. Well, yeah, I don't have those collective memories, unfortunately. Although I've been, as kind of we've been talking about this conceptually, I have been sort of doing the double of sort of scrolling through the chat that we had as a collective of individuals about the superlative awards, because we, as you mentioned, Steph, we're all in on that conversation. And I, of course, have stumbled across the video of a certain sand wrestle where Steph took down, who was it? Is it Jack Mack?
That was Jack Mack taken down.
Yeah, people got to see it. You got to know the right people to find that video. But I think to briefly touch on the point about really awesome players on teams lower down in the standings, I think to just basically slightly repeat Benji's point, it is about that. How do you quantify that success? And also it's that, I suppose it's the difficulty of if your team is not successfully really able to show up completely in those matches where you are playing against the other teams that are, at the very top of things. Because I think also it's a difficult way to see those players really fully shine as units when they're having to do so much on the field. Sometimes that stretches people different ways. And actually, we probably do miss some of the best players to talk about because they are, in a sense, not able to really shine in their roles specifically because they're having to do so much. And certainly towards the end of a tournament where we start to kind of think about the bracket plays and really hone our sights in, those people maybe are a little bit, because of their, again, the heavier workload, they're not able to really bring those very impressive plays because they're just the stamina. Everyone's human, right? So I think there's possibly, I don't know how we fix it, basically, is what I'm trying to say. I think it's just a nature of the beast. I think probably one of the things to say just generally to the women's division in Europe is that actually it seemed like from that chat that we'd all had that the women's awards were the most divergent across the kind of season. It seemed like the open division pretty much locked mixed. There was not that much flurry about, but there were some real strong views about who should be getting the awards in the women's division, which I think is, again, a really great testament to how healthy it all is. I think in terms of, breakouts to watch for, again, my mind goes back to kind of some of these under 20 and under 24 players that are still yet to really show us the same level at club that we've been expecting from them, in terms of their performances for their nations at those tournaments. I think potentially we might get another French breakout player. I think, obviously, I'm trying to think what is Myron Leduc? Are they Belgian or are they French?
I believe, though I cannot be certain.
I think they're actually French because they were in the French World Games initial 29 it was in the end. So certainly they qualified to play for France.
So that's my hot take, that the next breakout player in the women's division is going to be another French female matching athlete. That would be sick. They certainly have the depth of talent to do it.
I don't... Leduc wouldn't be eligible, right? Because she was runner-up on the list this year. Yeah, there is so much young talent coming through France that feels pretty sensible.
Yeah. And then in terms of the rest of the superlative awards, I mean, definitely Leshnik is... It's difficult, honestly, to view her as anything more than just a defensive absolute beast machine. But it's funny because it's that constant thing, isn't it, of D-line players and O-line players at heart, and how they think of, which one is the most, the highest echelon to reach. Is it an O-line or is it a D-line? I think it just really depends on your team's play style. But, defense win games, just saying. But, I'm not going to really pick anyone. I think I'm really excited to see all the teams come out this season. I think the women's division is, post-COVID, now really starting to get the engine back going. I was really, worried for a while there that it was just going to kind of, we saw a lot of players leave. I mean, obviously, Derb's comment earlier about, the huge numbers of people really interested in playing for Bristol. Yes, that's fantastic. That's exactly what you want to see, especially because, what do you do with those players that don't make those rosters? Where do they find themselves playing? And hopefully, across Europe, any of the players that don't make these top teams, that don't have the ability to, even get a training squad place with all this, attention, trying to get onto these rosters, hopefully we can see those people find places to play Ultimate and get even better and give us an even more difficult task of picking.
Making it trickier and trickier every year. That's the nature of it. Has there ever been a D-line player who's won Poti anywhere? Do we know that? Let us know in the comments or chats.
Probably somewhere. Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you.
If you don't know off the top of your head, Benji, I doubt it exists, because you tend to have all those facts at the fingertips. But yes, I would love to know. But it does seem the way, Hannah, that if you don't play O, you don't win the best player on the team.
Which is interesting, right? Is that our bias as pundits? Is that across because it's, the ULTI World people are the ones that come up with these awards, it's their product. So is that just a case of us being overly biased in terms of not being able to assess defensive capabilities to the same depth that we are offensive capabilities? I'm not trying to throw shade, it's an intriguing question.
Yes, stats help us shape so much, don't they? And you can, one break can win a game from time to time, not always, but percentage-wise, you still need to score approximately 15 goals or at least 10 in a low-scoring game, kind of thing. Like, those stats show up so much heavier for the team that's receiving pulls rather than the team that's chasing pulls. So it's very subjective, but it seems like the natural course to give the people who score all the goals the awards in the end. And I don't think there's any absurdity about it, but it is it's worthy of debate, most certainly, to let those D-liners who are hunting down layouts get some of the glory from time to time. I think that Anna Garner has to be back in the player of the year conversation next year. I know she was in the conversation. Levka was in the conversation. Anna got offensive player. Levka left off the awards, which, how well she does in the U.S., I think would blow the minds of a lot of U.S. spectators that, she's so good here and she doesn't even win awards in U.S. Very hard to keep her off. As you said, Hannah, the women's division was the toughest one to come to agreement upon. I see Anna being back up there, especially getting a bolstered roster and another year with Levka over there. I think Levka really changed the shape of Jinx's offense. She's such a dynamic spark plug, almost a Slusta style, and the game kind of had to evolve around her a little bit because she's such a prominent personality. I think one more year with her and the familiarity working with her, then throw in another weapon one of those players is going to. I think this is why I wanted to coach Jinx, because I would have checked I think I would check Anna over to D line, which sounds crazy. But I think doing what GRUT has done and having somebody as dominant as Leshnik to just shut down your best player on the other team. Anna, of course, an athletic offensive player, not just a pure thrower. She will run with anyone and shut them down. And a hucker, she can pick up and make the defensive offense work really well. I'd love to see that. That's what you're missing, Jinx. You could have had me. But yeah, so I see Anna back on second runner up. I see her as runner up, and I see Floor being dominant again. As for the rest, breakouts. You talk about the French players. I think yes, but I also think no. In under 24 years and World Games years, I think the French are going to all drop off their club seasons. They're not going to play Euros very much.
Sorry, how did France do it under 24s in Nottingham?
Oh yeah, really well. They weren't there.
Exactly.
Yeah, but they're gonna go this year.
Are they?
I don't know for sure, but they gotta
Well, it's only over the border. I think they were saying about funds last time, and obviously it's in the north of Spain. It's near Santander, so it's just and they can get the TGV, right?
Yeah, if they don't go, that is such a kick in the shins for those under 24 players. It was a big kick in the shins last time. They would have had an awesome team, and they let it go. But I know, that there are Coralie Fouquet. I think she could be in the running for Players of the Year. Has not played Euros in years because she puts all her focus into playing for France. Last year it was France mixed. Didn't care about club season. The year before she picked up with a mixed team in Wrocław. I don't even remember which team. They did horribly. But she doesn't care, and I think that there's a lot of these French players that will play for the Bleu Blanc Rouge with everything they're worth, and if they don't have a club team to take them, then c'est la vie. So I don't know if I see a French youth. I think I'm gonna go back over to my team that's going to jump the most and say those woofers from Ghent are going to potentially have the one. And the one I like is Desmet. I'm trying to Emma Desmet.
Emma
was our awesome volunteer at juniors when we were there. But then I saw her play at EUCF. I saw her play on the beach. An absolute weapon, a big framed girl. She will take everything, boxes out well, has got a huge range, goes up well, and throws has been playing from early days of youth, a second generation player. So that's who I'm going to stick out there and say we didn't really cover offense, defense, but we kind of had a good yammer on about it. Any last words about any of the awards? If there's anything you guys didn't spit out?
No, Steph, other than if the French Federation decide not to put an under-24 team in due to lack of funds, I think you should personally set them up a Kickstarter and then bring the sponsors to the bar, because, that is one of your many talents, Steph.
Yeah, let's see. I've got a few projects that are trying to squeeze money out of the sponsors. And squeeze it out, but it will be worth it. Make sure you're responding to my emails, sponsors, because there are a lot of good things lined up. We'll see, Hanny, if we can line one more up, but it's a big ask. I think the Federation can handle this. We're going to see the French and Logorno, which might mean we may see a little bit less of them on the club season. That'll wrap up the women's division. We're going to keep rolling. We're going to take a short break here and be back with more. Thanks for joining us for the women's division. We'll be back. Make sure you catch the other shows for the open division and the mixed division, all here on ULTI.TV.